Hey everyone, welcome back to LMI Podcast, Lawyers Mediators International show and podcast, where we talk about the law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. So today I have special guest Mike Fonseca of Soberlink, who will be talking to us today about a little bit of what I call legal tech, which is a tool that you use to deal with sobriety issues that may come up, especially in my line of work in co-parenting cases. All right, Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
All right, good, good. Well, so thank you so much for coming on. I invited you out here after we met each other a few weeks back at the MLK event, where you were talking about Soberlink to lots of different lawyers, mainly lawyers and mediators in the Houston area. And so, because I have not used Soberlink, but because I've used Soberlink's products in my own mediation agreements, wanted to have you come on just so that you can share a little bit about what Soberlink is and just educate people out there who may one day find themselves needing to use it within their mediation agreements or court orders. So yeah, before we get started, why don't you share a little bit about yourself? I know you're the national sales manager of Soberlink and you go around the country educating people, but just a little bit about who Mike Fonseca is, that would be helpful.
Sure. We're an alcohol monitoring solution, technology, hardware, and software. We've been doing this for, like I said, 16 years now. We were constructed and founded for the purpose of helping people with alcohol use disorder. And the product was engineered for clinical purposes. We first came to market in 2010-11, and it was first used for criminal courts for alternative sentencing for DUIs and DWIs. But what we were doing was gathering data and information on how we improved outcomes for people struggling with alcohol use disorder. So in 2015, we sold the criminal rights, became FDA cleared as a medical device, and we started being used by 11 major airlines for pilots' work compliance monitoring. We then got accepted in clinically by continued care facilities like Karen, Hazelden, Betty Fords of the world.
Okay.
And near and dear to me as a parent was family law, people dealing with alcohol misuse, co-parenting issues. Were able to build a bridge for people to see their kids unsupervised when alcohol misuse was alleged or when it was known and confirmed. So it's really great because we're able to prove someone doesn't have a problem when they're falsely being accused, and also hold people accountable when it is a known issue.
Yes. And so this typically comes up where you have two parents. While one of them may have a problem, and one of them wants accountability in a way that's going to help protect kids. And the way I last used SoberLink in my own cases, it was where I was a mediator, and one of the parties had a drinking problem, and the other parent would never allow that child to go with that parent who had the problem. And so we introduced SoberLink into the agreement, well, first into the conversation to let people know what this is, how it works, and what it's all about. And by the end of the mediation agreement, everyone signed off on it. We had to go through pricing and all that. And so I hope you can talk to us about that today. But it was a tool that allowed us to facilitate an agreement that probably would not otherwise have happened or would have gone to court where the judge would have to make a decision. But because Soberlink existed, it helped us get the two parents on the same page with how they were going to manage this particular problem. And so, in your experience, is that the predominant use today, and that is a co-parenting world, or is it being used in other places, like you said, airlines or the criminal courts?
We're about 60% family law monitoring. The rest of it is clinical monitoring. The biggest separation factor is how serious we take it. We manufacture in the United States. Our support team, which is our legal department that's providing legal support, certified records, affidavits, testimony, because the data that we provide is extremely important. We need to make sure that our data is proven, the courts are accepting it. And for example, we're on our seventh generation in 16 years. It has to do a lot with tamper detection, facial recognition. Uh, Several things happened when people were struggling with addiction. They're trying to circumvent, cheat, get around any potential nuance that might come around. And we really hold people accountable with technology, support, facial recognition. We have patents on temperature, pressure, and our newest device has a measure for humidity. So it's in exception-based testing. When people are testing remotely, it's extremely difficult to hold accountability. So it's a great resource and tool for anyone struggling with the addiction.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. So, with regards to the actual Soberlink device, people may imagine something that you blow into. And I think the question of, well, can you trust it? How do you know what a false positive is? Or what if you tamper with it? How can people be confident that this device actually works? Can you go into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So, like I mentioned, we're an FDA cleared medical device. So we go through rigorous audits on the accountability and the structure of the integrity of the device. We manufacture in the United States. The device has an embedded camera inside of it. And when you blow into it for 4 seconds unobstructedly, it takes your photograph. So we do 100% of the facial recognition. It's impossible for you to pass it to anyone and have somebody else test for you. After the 4th second, it takes your photograph. We compile the information, the photograph, and we redirect the data through a HIPAA compliant web portal to the entity where it's supposed to go. In family law, it's always to the concerned party, the legal team, or guardian for the child, whoever is responsible for the child's safety. Like I mentioned, we're on our seventh generation device. I thought when we were in criminal law, we were being
Mhm.
tested as far as people trying to game and manipulate it. But I think family courts took us to a whole new level of complexity of where we need to be to show good faith to concerned parents and parties in the courts as well.
Gotcha. So basically, it's tamper proof. I believe you actually held it up when we were having the live conversation and you blew into it. It was a little funny, actually, to see that. But it came back and it showed that you were clear, right? And so I believe you were talking at that time about how there might be some instances where it actually says or detects that there might be alcohol in the
Mhm,
system, even though you had not been drinking. Can you explain
mhm,
why sometimes that might happen, maybe with the mouthwash you use or the food you might eat?
mhm. So in exception-based testing, we're only as good as the people using it. And people make mistakes. They're instructed, and we make them sign client user agreements on how to use it for best practices purposes. But, people make mistakes. If they use a product that has alcohol in it and they use the device, they will test positive. But our device is set up to not alert someone after the first test. They're contractually obligated to retest every 15 minutes until alcohol is eliminated or provide us 6 additional confirmation tests. So, example would be if I tested positive, one, I would panic and wondering what happened, but especially if I wasn't drinking, the device would lock me out. And in 15 minutes, when it unlocks, I get a text message prompted to retest. And once I retest, if it truly was incidental mouth alcohol, which would be, for example, it will eliminate from your mouth. And in 15 minutes, I would test zero or compliant. And that's the only notification we would send to the parties that are interested in the information. So that would be an honest mistake. And there's no need to alarm someone early when it truly is a false positive. If I was to test the second time positive, that is the first notification we send out to the contacts. And then the retest cycle keeps going until we get 6 additional tests. Those markers tell us if it's consumed alcohol any form of contamination or mouth alcohol.
Gotcha. So when I've discussed using Soberlink in a mediation setting, sometimes the thing that comes up is someone will complain about the cost of it, or they may feel like they're being punished because, in addition to having limitations on them seeing their children, they're also having to now pay for something that will help
Mhm.
facilitate that. But that goes without saying, as something that happens quite a bit anytime you're having supervised visitation or something like that. But when it deals with this kind of technology, there's certainly going to be costs. It's not free. So can you talk about that a little bit? What kind of costs should people look forward to possibly seeing?
Sure. So the average person spends just over $200 a month. The recommended term of use for known uh, problem alcohol cases is 1 year. So you're looking at a multiple thousand spend over the course of the year. That's for known problem drinkers. When it's hearsay cases, they can use this for any amount of time. The one thing that we do is we rent our device. There's no out of pocket cost to get started. So when someone starts, example, today being the 20th, I could activate service starting tomorrow, and I would not be getting my first bill prorated for March's use until April 1st, for example. So we're very, very aware that it could be cumbersome. They're going through divorce. They might have two roofs to pay for now.
Yeah.
And we also have an assistance program, in case you didn't know. For anyone that's financially challenged, we do assist them as long as they qualify. So we get a lot of attorneys that do pro bono work or discounted work, and we take their word for it. And we have heavily discounted rates for all levels of service.
Gotcha. So, how popular would you say this is around the country? Because you guys are around the country, not internationally, right?
We're in Canada, the UK, Australia, and some other countries
Okay,
as well.
gotcha, gotcha. So, how popular is this tool compared to others in the market? Because I don't really know the market that well.
We definitely hold ourselves as the number one alcohol monitoring tool in family law. There are some competitors trying to get into the space, but they're consumer grade products. I would be very leery to use any of them. They're very easy to circumvent. I've tested them. I figured out a way to cheat them in course of minutes.
Yeah.
So as an attorney, I would be very leery to even contemplate or have one of your adversaries propose something different than what we offer, because we know what's at stake: child safety and the whole accountability of the purpose of the monitoring case.
Yes. So, are you ever concerned that this might be used as a weapon by one side against the other? Uh, just can you speak to that issue, I guess, from a moral perspective?
Sure. So I'm glad you brought that up. We never want to be used as a weaponization tool. We are used clinically, and we want to reunify children with their parents. The goal
Yes.
is to not be a villain. We want to just show accountability. We changed when we shifted gears from criminal to family courts to a zero tolerance, zero threshold, allowing us to test fewer times per day. And this helped one thing versus adult probation monitoring. The other side of it is, it's not a moral failing if they're struggling with alcohol use.
Yeah.
The goal is to possibly shine light on a problem that might be bigger than the person actually acknowledged. So if they're struggling and they didn't know they were, or they didn't think they were, we can shine light on the problem. And, you know, like I said, we're in clinical monitoring. The goal is to have better outcomes for the child, the family as a whole.
Yes. So, can you go a little bit about the differences between the, I guess, different levels of testing? If I have a typical case, mom and dad, one of them has an alcohol issue, what would I be typically looking at? Having them tested constantly or just when they're about to do their visit?
Most people agree to be monitored during their visitation time, their parenting time. Um, we do full-time abstinence monitoring. We do have cases where mom or dad has custody of the child, and if they're the ones that have allegations against them that they have issues with alcohol, then they would be monitored 24/7, 365. And th- those end up being monitored for multiple years or until the kids potentially age out. But in most instances, if it's mom or dad that has visitations first, third, fifth weekend, just for example, they start using us a few hours before child exchange, before pickup, and then an average of 3 times per day are around sleep time. So they test in the morning, they test at night, typically once in the middle of the afternoon. In rare cases, for high risk cases, they might add an additional test. And then we want to act as an accountability tool, not so much giving them a small window of opportunity to submit a test. We realize they're parenting. If they forgot their device, they're driving to school or dropping off kids, or they're at the movie theater, the baseball field, the soccer field. We want to make sure to give them enough time to not feel like they have to be burdened by carrying this device on them with them all the time.
Yeah.
So we give at least 2 hours, and in high risk cases, 1 hour compliance windows.
Okay. Um, you mentioned the word accountability. Ultimately, that's the goal, right? Especially to help somebody who might not think they have a problem. Um, do you have any success stories when it comes, to this whole, industry where you're trying to help people who are sometimes fighting a real addiction and it's taking over their life? Do you have any success stories where Soberlink has helped, transform some co-parenting relationships for the better and help protect kids?
Yeah, so our device was solely made for accountability, and oftentimes there's pushback. People don't want to use us because there's a stigma about
Yeah,
having Big Brother looking over you.
yeah,
But when it's a known issue or it's alleged, it's really easy to clear that. And over time, you end up regaining trust with people that you've lost trust with. So we do get great stories where someone came full circle. They start using us. They think they're going to be on this product for 3 months and graduate off. And they test positive the very first weekend. They didn't
mm,
realize they could abstain. They could not abstain for one weekend.
mm,
And then the light comes on. It's like, wow, maybe the problem's bigger than I thought. They
yeah,
might go through some sort of rehabilitation, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, 12-step program. And then they come back to us and realize, I didn't know I had this problem. The problem was as big as it was. And now this tool has helped me regain trust back with my kids, my spouses or my ex-spouse, my parents, because we have the capability to unlimited recipients.
yes. Do you guys have the ability to connect people with other resources? So do you guys just stop there with the monitoring, or are there other treatments places you guys can send people to?
We can give referrals. So depending on where you are and what state, um, depending on their means financially,
Yeah.
we'll give recommendations based on where they are in the country. But yeah, we do business with addiction experts all around the country, from sole practitioners to large facilities with multiple dozens of beds.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Yeah. And so I've had a sobriety coach come on this show before, maybe a couple years back. And so I was thinking about her talk, this morning when I was preparing for this. And this tool basically is a complement to that discussion. And so people who are interested in this talk can definitely go on the channel and check that old video out. But thank you so much for coming on. Was there anything that I should have asked you that you would want people to know, just for information purposes?
I just want to remind people that we are 100% here for them. It's not a moral failing if they're struggling with the addiction. If they're being falsely accused, we can be used preemptively to get that argument off the table. So we're
Yeah.
starting to get attorneys use us, clients, to abstain for 30 days. So once they go in front of the judge or the hearing board or whoever it is that they're going to deal with, they have the data in front of them. So when it's accused and they say, look, my client abstained for 30 or 60 days, this should not be relevant. It gets thrown out ahead of ahead of the time. So it's a great resource and tool for that purpose.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for bringing that up. As a family law attorney, I have in the past had a person who was accused of, let's say, using illegal drugs to go preemptively and do a what we call a John Doe test
Mhm.
themselves, at a lab that's reputable that the courts might respect. And it works. When you go and you clear yourself out and you have a test report that says you're negative for illicit drugs, the other person's accusations, don't stick. And it help
Right.
protect kids, of course. And so, yeah, I didn't know that was a trend that was happening with Soberlink as well, but good to know.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike Fonseca, for coming on today on the LMI podcast. I appreciate this conversation. And I know that this will be educational for some people out there who this comes up more than we realize. We are, uh, like, alcohol is just part of our culture, right?
It
And
is.
it's something that it's there's no prohibition. So therefore, it's going to be around. We have to deal with it, and we got to protect kids. So this tool brings a perfect solution to a problem that seems to just be going every day.
Exactly right. And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure educating and sharing the information with
Yeah,
followers.
absolutely. All right, everyone, check out this video and all the other ones at alamapodcast.com or the YouTube channel. All right, take care. Thank you so much.